What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jalen. Welcome to the Locker Room Podcast. In this episode, I'm going to talk about why I started this podcast and what it really feels like when your sports career ends. I'm going to walk through my last college track meet, what I immediately missed the most, and what I wish every athlete knew before their last game. So let's get into it. I'm starting this podcast because I noticed there's a void in the market for former athletes to have honest discussions about what life feels like after sports. A lot of us spend years of our lives inside of a system where everything is structured, and then one day, whether you're ready for it or not, that structure is gone. This is important to me because I've had many conversations with former teammates about how hard that transition can be. I've talked about the anxiety, the anger, and even the sadness that can come with looking back on the old days. It's important because I know I'm not the only one who has felt this. I know I'm not the only former athlete who has struggled to adjust to everyday life without the routine and the identity that sports gave us. I also know that not everyone has someone to share these struggles with. And that's who this podcast is for. It's for the former athlete who is trying to figure out how to move forward without feeling like they have to erase the part of themselves that came from sports. It's for the person who misses the game but doesn't always know how to talk about it without feeling like they're stuck in the past. It's for the person who has experienced depression and even a lack of purpose after stepping away from the sport they gave so much of their lives to. When I think back on my own transition, there's so many different things I could have done or tried to make it more manageable. And that's what I want this space to be. I want this podcast to be a place where former athletes can have these conversations and share experiences without shame and without feeling like somebody's going to tell you to just let it go. Some of us, like myself, have been out of the game for a while, but that doesn't mean we processed everything and our identity connected to sports just disappears. You need a place to talk it through. So if the shoe fits, welcome to the locker room. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what this grows into as the season goes on. Over time, I want this to grow into more than a conversation. I want to record workout content, recovery and nutrition videos, do sports commentary, and build practical resources that help former and current athletes take care of their minds and bodies even after their playing days are over. I also want to create a real community around this where people can connect, compete, and be around that locker room energy again in a healthy way. I hope this makes people feel seen and connected. So if this hits home for you, help me out by subscribing, leaving a like, and dropping a comment with your own experience. Because this isn't just my story. This is a conversation a lot of us probably needed a long time ago. And frankly, it's a conversation that needs to start in high school. According to the National Federation of State High School Associations, there were over 8 million high school athletes in the 2024-25 school year. But according to the NCAA, only about 560,000 athletes went on to compete at the Division 1, Division 2, or Division 3 level. That's only 7% of high school athletes who played in the NCAA, which obviously does not include NAIA or JUCO. Out of the high school athletes playing baseball, basketball, and football, the numbers were 8.8, 3.6, and 8.1% for those who play in the NCAA. I bring that up because we know the numbers get even smaller when talking about athletes going on to play professionally. Just to drive the point home, the chances of an NCAA athlete going to a major professional league in baseball, basketball, or football is 4.9, 1, and 1.4% respectively. So when you really sit with that, it means the vast majority of athletes will have to face life without the sport straight out of high school. Not because they failed and not because they weren't good enough as people, but because sports has an expiration date, and for most, it's a lot sooner than you may realize. That's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. We prepare athletes to perform. We prepare them to compete. We prepare them to sacrifice and chase the next level. But how often do we prepare them for the moment when the game is no longer the center of their life? Because whether you stopped after high school, after college, after an injury, after burnout, or after realizing the next opportunity just wasn't coming, that transition can still hit hard. And if we're really looking at it, there are way more former athletes than current athletes. So this is a conversation for all of us, even if you're still playing. Now let's talk about how this transition started for me. The last meet of my college career was the track and field conference championship. It was the spring of 2023 at our home stadium, Tiger Stadium at Morehouse College. The meet took place over 2 or 3 days, and I still remember the weather being almost perfect. It was sunny but not too hot. The breeze was just right. It was one of those weekends where from the outside looking in, everything felt like it should have been set up for a great ending. But honestly, the stakes were a little different for us. For most of us on the team, myself included, this meet was only about bragging rights for who the best team in the conference was. We supposedly had a rivalry with Benedict College, but that was more so in cross country because they had won the track and field conference championship for at least the last 3 years. So there was definitely that feeling of wanting to beat them, wanting to change the story, and wanting to end that season with something we could be proud of. Some of you may be thinking, it's a conference championships, dude. Obviously, it's about who the best team is. And you're right. But at the same time, not many of us were in any position to qualify for nationals or anything else. So in that way, this meet was only about pride. It was all about trying to finish the season with some kind of statement. Before I continue with the story, let me give you some context. I started this season with high expectations, not just for me, but for my teammates too. I really wanted us to have a strong year, and I really thought we could have accomplished some great things. But the deeper we got into the season, the more I realized those expectations were just wishful thinking. Our coach had plans for us that I was not prepared for, and I'll get more detailed about that in a later episode, but I was a sprinter. What I mean by not being prepared for his plans was running so much in practice, you would have thought we were all getting ready for cross country during track season. We hardly ever got out of the blocks. We hardly ever did handoffs. We hardly ever sprinted. All we did was run. So over time, you could feel the gap between what we wanted the season to be, what I wanted the season to be, and what it was actually becoming. By the time conference came around, a lot of us were still competing, but we were also carrying the overwhelming weight of a season that didn't go the way we hoped it would, especially for the seniors. My last college race ended up being the 4x4 in the semifinals. That was it. That was my last time competing in a college uniform. And I don't remember having this big emotional moment where I crossed the finish line and thought this was the last time. I didn't really process it that way in the moment. But fast forward to the final day of the track meet, the next day, I got a chance to run in the final. I don't know exactly what was going on, but one of my teammates was having some kind of issue and I was the next man up. But after what seemed like forever, he ended up running and I didn't. If you don't know, the 4x4 is the last race of a track meet. After I watched my teammates run, I dopped everybody up, I stayed for the awards, I said bye to my coaches, they had some food for us left out, I got some of it, and I left. I'm pretty sure the next person I talked to was my fiance, who is now my wife. She came to the meet like she did every other one, and we rode home together. I never went back into the locker room though. There wasn't this movie scene ending where everybody sat around and soaked it all in. There wasn't a final speech where everybody took turns giving their 2 cents. But even without going back in there, I could feel the disappointment. I knew how much that season meant to so many of us. I knew how badly people wanted it to end differently, and there were just so many unmet expectations across the board. Looking back, it was honestly kind of depressing to think about how that season unfolded for most of us. And what makes it even more interesting is that at the time, I still didn't think I was done. I figured I'll probably join the summer league and just keep running. So in my mind, that race wasn't necessarily the end. It was just the end of that chapter. But sometimes you don't realize you're living through your last moment until it's already behind you. It took a few weeks for it to really settle in that I wasn't playing anymore because I was about to graduate at the time. So my main focus was finishing school and walking across that stage. So it kind of distracted me from thinking about the fact that my athletic career had ended too. But even before that, my daily routine changed almost instantly. That next Monday after the championship, I had a lot more free time. For years, there was always something built into my schedule. Even the times when I got tired of it, sports still gave me a rhythm. And then all of a sudden, that rhythm was gone. As crazy as it sounds, one of the things I felt missing was the feeling where you're joking around with your teammates, but in the back of your mind, you're also wondering about practice. One major thing people on the outside don't always understand is that sometimes you don't just miss the sport. You miss the people. You miss the preparation. You miss being around others who understand what that feels like. And even though part of me knew it was over, I don't think I was ready to fully accept that I was done. I actually considered going to grad school, but looking back, I think I was trying to hold on to the idea that there was another opportunity for me to compete. Because when you've been an athlete for so long, it's hard to just turn that off. But in the month between that last meet and graduation, I slowly started to realize that life was moving forward, but my life connected to sports was not moving forward in the same way. Even though it took a while for me to realize my career was over, right away, I missed competing. I missed having fun at practice. I missed traveling. I missed joking on the bus and the feeling of being part of something bigger than myself. But more than anything, I missed the camaraderie. I missed being in an environment where, even if things weren't perfect, we were still connected by the same goal. We were still trying to accomplish something together. You have people from different places, different backgrounds, different personalities, different upbringings, and somehow all of you come together to form this big family. It's not always smooth and everybody doesn't always get along. But there is something special about being aligned toward a goal and knowing we're all in this together. One thing I didn't expect to miss was being coached. Because when you're in it, coaching can be frustrating. You don't always agree, you don't always understand the plan, but after it was gone, I realized there was something meaningful about having someone else invested in my development. Someone watching, correcting, pushing, and challenging, expecting something more from me. I did not expect to miss that kind of accountability. And that's when I really started to understand how much of my identity was tied to sports. For most of my life, All of it was tied up in being an athlete. All I claimed to want to do growing up was go to the NFL. Once I stopped playing football, it was going to the Olympics to run track. I had visions of being great. I built my life around perfecting what I did. I consumed so much of my time with the pursuit of getting better, being better, and proving that I belong in the top spots. So when sports started to fade, it wasn't just something I did that was ending. It felt like I was ending too. I saw myself as purposeless for a long time after that season of my life. I was living without specific goals in mind, and that was hard too because goals were always built into a workout, a practice. But after that season, I didn't know what I was chasing anymore. I didn't even know what to chase, and much less where to find the motivation to do so. I felt unsure of myself. I felt a little lost, to be honest, and I couldn't imagine what would replace the feeling that sports gave me. That was the hardest part of it all, by far. Part of your life, your identity is stripped away and being forced to move on and adjust on the fly. The things and the people you've known and loved, your routines, all of it just stops suddenly, but the world doesn't stop. To make it worse, after it's over, you start replaying things. You wonder what could have gone differently. You wonder what path might have opened up if you made different choices, if you had made more plays. You wonder if you would have been better off training for X instead of Y or Z. I wondered if I should have focused on track more than football. I loved playing football growing up, but after my freshman year of college, it just wasn't the same. Not to mention, I was in college during COVID, so that obviously affected things. But as I got older, my life changed. I felt as if track suited me more. I loved the idea of having all the pressure on my back and having more of a personal responsibility for how I stack up against other athletes head to head, rather than depending on 10 other people to coordinate to get the job done. I could go on and I will another day, but I think a lot of former athletes live with some version of that question. Not always regret, but reflection. That's a hard part of the transition too, learning how to look back honestly without getting trapped there. If there's one thing I wish every athlete knew before their last game, it's that the heaviness of losing sports is real. I don't even think there's a way to avoid it or even dampen it. I know people say not to live with regrets, but that's impossible. I can't sit here before God or anyone else and say that I always gave 100%. I can't say that I always put in the work behind the scenes to help me be the best I can. I can't say I wasn't distracted by other things at times. I can't say I didn't have the opportunity to maximize my potential. On the other side, though, I also can't say I knew everything. Hindsight is 2020. If I knew back then what I knew now, I'd be an animal. But I didn't. And sometimes that's just how sports is. It's not perfect. Not without mistakes, not without setbacks, not without distractions, not without regrets. You just have to move forward with the knowledge you accumulate from wins and losses, trials and tribulations. And that's why I believe confidence and preparation matter so much. You have to start off with the belief that you're capable of doing whatever you set your mind to, but belief by itself isn't even enough. You have to prepare your body and your mind to actually carry the weight of that belief. There are a lot of different ways to prepare. There are so many different training methods and coaches, systems, and paths you can take nowadays, but you have to find what works for you. You also have to be open to change and find what lines up with the future you see for yourself. And be honest enough to ask, is the way I'm preparing actually helping me become who I say I want to be? Because if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would tell him, ask for help. I would tell him, you don't have to figure out everything by yourself. That was one of my biggest flaws. I wanted to be self-made. I wanted to solve my own problems. I wanted to be the one who figured it out without needing anybody else to guide me. Looking back, I would tell my younger self to go seek the help he needed. I would tell him, go find the coaches, ask the questions, get the feedback, learn from people who know more than you. Surround yourself with a team of people who are fully invested in reaching the goal you're looking for and helping you get there. Stop trying to prove you can do it alone. No one does it alone. That's incredibly short-sighted, especially when the right help might be and probably will be the very thing that helps you get to where you're trying to go. I want to leave you all with this. Life after sports is not just about learning how to move on. It's about understanding what sports gave you, what it took from you, how it shaped you, and what parts of you need to be rebuilt or rediscovered. It's about applying the information you gain over time to your life moving forward. For a lot of us, the transition will take weeks. Sometimes it'll take months. Sometimes it might take years before you realize how much of your identity was connected to being an athlete and how your life is still being affected by it. And that's okay. My goal for this podcast isn't to shame you for missing it or to pretend it didn't matter or to act like you're weak because it still affects you. My goal is to help us all be honest about our experience, to look back with clarity, and to move forward with purpose. I want you to know you're not alone. Whether you stop playing after high school, college, injury, burnout, graduation, or simply because the next opportunity just didn't come, this conversation is for you. And this is just the beginning. Throughout this season, we're going to have all kinds of conversations just like this one. So, once again, welcome to the locker room. If you got value from this, make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and comment your own experience down below. I'd love to hear what you missed the most and what you're still working through. And until next time, remember, the game changed, but your story is still being written. Take care and God bless.